story is called Tie Together and Worlds Apart. A holism story in 3 parts. Scene 1, Philadelphia, United States of America. Subject, what is holiness? Body of the email. There can be no doubt that holiness is all about separation. Israel from the nations, kosher from non-kosher, work from rest. The list is endless. Holiness is all about separation. I thought about this, and, you know, it made sense, and yet it bothered me. Wasn't he leaving out a vital component of holiness and holism, of holiness? What about the healing that comes when you take what is broken, what is separated, and bring it together and create a whole? Is that not holiness? So I went online and researched the dictionary definition of holiness and try and determine the derivation of the words holiness, whole, holy, healing. And lo and behold, they all come with us from the same root, and the root is an Old English word, hell, which means sort of completeness, entirety, uninjured, healed. So I crafted an email back to him, very carefully, in my mind, clear to include an orthodox source. Now, this email from my friend had come in the form of a drush that he had given at the synagogue, and he was eager to find out my response. So I crafted a note, an email, saying, you know, perhaps holiness includes both connection and separation. You know, if you think about the word cleave, on the face of it, it makes no sense. Cleave is to divide sharply. So, take an axe, you cleave a log, split it, separate it. But the tree from which the log comes might cleave, its roots might cleave to a rock in order to keep it upright. So cleave, really the word is a paradox. It both means to separate and to connect and to adhere tightly. And in fact, if you think about it, I wrote to him, Rabbi Soloveitchik said sanctity is not a paradise, but a paradox. So maybe the word holiness is one of these magical, paradoxical words that mean both separation and connection. And in fact, if you think about it, can you really have separation without connection? You need connection in order to have a separation. The two are totally dependent on one another. So I was very happy, and I'd sent off an email, you know, I won. I got a reply back very shortly thereafter. I mean, very shortly. He barely, you know, finished reading it and wrote back. The ink was still wet. And his answer was quite succinct. Anyone want to guess what the answer was? No. Scene 2. Venice, Italy. After almost a month of touring, deserted, desolate, devastated, destroyed Jewish sites, it came as a great relief to see a man in the background, far in the distance. We were in a square, and there he was in the distance, with a black hat, black coat, black pants, black beard, black shoes, white shirt, approaching. Surely a living, breathing Jew, I thought to myself. And I was like overjoyed, you know, here's a little life. And he walked towards me, and then I saw the tzitzit. Aha, okay, yes, he is a Jew. And he was heading straight for me. So I'm walking along, he's coming, and I'm kind of like eager to speak to somebody, know a little bit about, why he's here and in such an improbable location. And he comes right up to me, and by way of a greeting, he says, "Are you Jewish?" Because I'm not wearing, the same clothes. So I say, "Yes." Then he says, "Have you put on tefillin this morning?" So I immediately revert to my doctor days. Patient in bed 6 wants a bedpan. I think Jew on the square needs a mitzvah, put on tefillin. I'm a nameless number here, I'm anonymous, and I felt quite annoyed by this encounter. And I left despondent, but resolved. I'm not going to allow myself to be in a tefillin ambush again. I am going to be prepared. Has anybody felt that way? Am I alone? Scene 3, Tzfat, in Israel. And it's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's a beautiful sunny day. And my wife, wonderful Rabbi Goldie Milgrad, was shopping with friends. It's going to be Shabbat that evening. I know dinner's going to be quite late after all the ritual and preparation. So I think to myself, I'll go and have a cup of tea and some scones, but of course it's Israel, so I'll have a falafel sandwich instead. And so there is that square, that trapezoidal, triangular, whatever square in the old part of town, and there's an outdoor falafel stand, and I get a falafel sandwich, and I sit down on one of those rickety tables that they had, table and chairs, and a few tables away from me are 3 yeshiva bochers. Now, they're not wearing black, they're dressed in regular clothing, but I suspect they're yeshiva bochers because they've got the backpacks and they've got their books on the table and they're really talking quite earnestly. And I just pay a little attention to them, but I'm, meantime, enjoying my sandwich, enjoying the sunshine, having a drink of Diet Coke. And I notice one of them is surreptitiously sort of looking at me out of the corner of his eye. He's got this, I remember the Andy cap kind of cap on his head, and he's probably around 20 years old, maybe 18, 19. Eventually he walks over to me, he sort of saunters, just gradually eases his way over to me. And by this stage I've finished my sandwich and I'm happy to have a little company and chat a bit, we've still got some time. Comes over and he says, "Have you laid tefillin this morning?" So, I say no. He's almost incredulous. He says, you're Jewish, right? And I say, yes, I'm Jewish. And you haven't laid tefillin? No. And it's Erev Shabbat, it's an extra special mitzvah to put on tefillin today. Yeah, they tell me so. So let's put on, I'll help you, we'll put on tefillin, right? No. But it's, you know it is a great mitzvah. And I say, yeah. So you'll do it? Yeah. But what do you do if you're Jewish? You don't put on tefillin? I said, well, Judaism's very important to me. And I use Judaism in my teaching. I use it when in my writing. I use it when I teach students, when I mentor. And do you know Martin Buber, the I-Thou Martin Buber, I refer to a lot, and he guides me. And Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. And these are, I use that type of writing to inform me and guide me in my everyday life and in my work. He says to me, and he slaps that book in his hand, he said, "This book got everything, this Tanakh got everything that I need to know." Yeah, I'm sure it does. And Viktor Frankl can add to that by teaching you lessons on suffering that you may never, which will help you understand that book. And Martin Buber will help you understand the relationships. It'll add to the book. You know what? I have a thought. You can put on tefillin onto my arm if you promise that you will go and read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Whoa! He's like taken aback. He's no longer, the smile has disappeared. He's no longer totally enraptured, and he seems a little puzzled. Maybe a little more than a little puzzled. I, on the other hand, think, aha, I'm pulling him in. But then he comes back to me and says, "I don't have money for the book." Okay. You can go to the library, I say. He says, "It's Shabbos, the library's closed." And now he's smiling a little more. I said, "It's fine, go on Monday, I'll take your word for it." So he turns to one of the other bochers and he says, "Go ask the Rav if it's okay." Guy runs off. In 5 minutes, he's back. He said, "The Rav sagt is good." He's, checkmate, right? So we shake on it, wraps the tefillin on my arm, and I notice when he has taken out the tefillin from that bag, there's this glow on his face. He's clearly being transported somewhere, and he kisses it, and he gently unwraps it, and he wraps it around my arm, and I feel the touch of his hand, and now it's my turn to be surprised, because I'm affected by this. I feel really touched by what he's done. And then I have this great aha, because I'm transported back to this pubescent boy who's pre-bar mitzvah, having a tefillin wrapped on my arm. It's like this primitive ritual thing that makes no sense, and I look ridiculous to begin with, and with this tefillin out on, I look even more ridiculous. And I realize how I'd been affected as a kid, having to put on tefillin that I didn't want to put on, and nobody had bothered to explain the deeper meaning of it. Anyway, we went through the prayer, and then unwrapped the tefillin, and I noticed as he put away the tefillin, he had the same reverence for it, and we shook hands, and he left, and eventually I left, and I knew that in this square, where two strangers had encountered each other, so different in terms of age, background, religious belief, we had connected, and holiness had happened.